Grace and peace to you. Welcome to this fourth and final study of the faith of Dostoyevsky. The Brothers Karamazov was published in installments. Readers avidly awaited it month by month. At 58, Dostoyevsky was venerated across Russia, and this was clearly his greatest work. It would be his last. Soon after its final page, he died. I hope to show that in a strange but important sense, this was appropriate to his now fulfilled life. The heart of the book is what had long tortured him, certainly since he'd resigned from the army at age 23 to write a novel about it. How can our all-loving, all-powerful God allow his children to suffer so? Down the years, there had come from his pen powerful grapplings with theodicy. The Brothers Karamazov brought it to a head. Lawrence of Arabia called it a fifth gospel. Mario Puzo of Godfather fame said, "Once as an adolescent, hopelessly at odds with the world, I stumbled across this book. It changed my life. I remember the day I finally took it back to the orphanage library and walked out into the lemony sunlight of an autumn day. I had a feeling of grace." We meet the family swiftly. The eldest son, Dmitri, muscular, yet something not healthy in his face. Ivan, morose, reserved, learned, young, proud. And Alyosha, the youngest, well-grown, red-cheeked, clear-eyed, radiant with health, thoughtful, serene. There is a fourth son, Smerdyakov, not part of the family, taken on as a servant. He's a bastard, the product of Father Fyodor's disgusting intercourse with the village moron, Stinking Lizaveta. Smerdyakov looks old for his age, wrinkled, yellow, unsociable. Our author writes there's immediate authenticity about them. They're their flesh and blood. But beside this flesh and blood appeal, as the story unfolds, we can justifiably see a symbolic possibility. Dmitri is passion, impulsive, often nobly moral. Ivan is logic, intellect. Alyosha is innocence, love, spirituality, laughter. Smerdyakov is the underground, the insect. And each has the Karamazov appetite for life. We're told they are united for the first time in their lives. The emotional, rational, spiritual, and dark aspects of the psyche together now, making a whole, a complete self. That's a possibility. The story centers on the killing of the father by a son, by the sons, possibly, and all four take part, even if some don't intend to or will admit to it. Dmitri makes it possible. Ivan thinks it aloud. Alyosha senses it but does nothing, and Smerdyakov commits it. Dostoyevsky would maintain this is what is happening across the culture, that from all that matters, people have eliminated the father in this age of disbelief. And as is happening, the father's removal causes disintegration. Ivan asks, suppose there is no God, how will the world be run? And answers, then strong men must come forward to govern it. Rather than describe the international chaos consequent on this, Dostoyevsky compacts the anguish into one family, the Snegirovs. They're the most wrenching of all his long gallery of Hertz victims. It's as if he focuses the entire theodicy question on their despair and demands, where is God? Mountains of unfairness fall on this family. Only their puny little boy, Ilusha, has the gumption to fight, and he's dying of consumption. Dostoyevsky thrusts his pen into their deepest hurts. Of course, as we've noted, Dostoyevsky couldn't escape the hurts himself. He was often in tears, feverish. My health is terribly disordered. I'm ill with nerves, ill-natured and ridiculous. But he always had Christ, remember? There's nothing more braver, more beautiful, profounder, more compassionate, wiser, or more perfect than Christ. It was a Russian Christ he worshipped, though, a humble servant Christ, a suffering Christ. We might take time to know this Christ. It was during his travels that he saw a painting of his Christ, though actually it was Holbein's Christus in grabe, Christ in the grave. It was of Christ just taken down from the cross and entombed. In the museum where he saw it, he was so transfixed by it, he got up on a chair to see over people's heads. Here is his note on it. Artists strive to preserve Christ's beauty. In this picture, there's no trace of beauty. It's the corpse of a man who has undergone the agony of crucifixion. The face of a man only just taken from the cross, still bearing traces of the warmth and life, nothing rigid in it yet, still a look of suffering as though he were still feeling it, with blood-stained bruises, the great wide-open whites of the eyes glittering. This is an image of Christ not favored in the West, where is preferred the babe in the manger, or Jesus the divine healer, the teacher, the crucified and risen King of Kings. In Russia, their overriding devotion was to the humiliated Christ, the suffering servant Christ. It was this Christ in whom Dostoyevsky believed and sought comfort, in a culture which saw God as standing aside from atrocities or guidance. But we'd begun to open the pages of the Brothers K. It would be his last work and his greatest. It devoured him. He was often in tears, his health deteriorating seriously. Yet at the same time, such was his splitness, his job as a patriotic journalist enabled him to trot out endless bigotry. And we were recalling that in the story of the brothers Karamazov, Ivan asks, suppose there is no God, how will the world be run? And answers, then strong men must come forward to govern it. Forgive me if I take time for personal memory. In 1979, the Centenary College Choir, of which I was privileged to be the, at least attend their singing, we toured Russia, and we all read the Brothers K as an academic requirement. On the way, we visited 2 concentration camps, Auschwitz, with its awful incinerators, and Salaspils in Latvia. In the latter, all the torture buildings are gone, but its blood-stained acres are filled with huge, brilliant sculptures of the horrors inflicted there. Across its entrance, which one had to walk under to get in, is a huge slab of rough concrete with, in several languages, Beyond this stone, the earth moans. In Krakow, in Poland, we stayed in an old hotel and were allocated, for our discussion of the Brothers K, a second-floor room overlooking the town square. The manager explained this had been Hitler's room when he'd visited Krakow during the war. In the desk I was using, Hitler had written his speech, praising his troops for conquering Poland. He had delivered it from that balcony out there. And ironically, in our discussion of the novel, we'd reached the very part where Ivan had talked of the need in a world without God of strong men to govern it. Had the German philosopher Nietzsche taken Ivan seriously? And had Hitler taken Nietzsche seriously? But we were discussing the novel. In it, I believe, Dostoyevsky puts to the test 3 treasured Christian answers to the problem of theodicy. If God is all-loving and omnipotent, why does he let his people suffer so? He wants the answers to be true. So do we. The first answer is that good people who are savaged in this life will be blessed in the next. In Luke 16:22, Jesus tells of a beggar dying and being carried into Abraham's bosom. The second is that a suffering person who trusts God achieves a quality of character and relationship with God unobtainable in any other way. In the book, these 2 teachings are tested in the furnace of a few people's torments, and neither seems helpful. But there is a third possible solution. Alyosha, remember him? Loving, spiritual, laughing, wants to be a monk, tells his brother Ivan, remember him? Coldly intellectual, tells him that he loves Christ. Scornfully, Ivan tells him about the Grand Inquisitor. If you haven't read the book, at least Google this part of it. If you've no Google, I will just say, in response to the Inquisitor's convoluted arguments, Jesus kisses him. And as Alyosha and Ivan share their thoughts, you hear an echo of John's Gospel, chapter 9, where a man blind from birth and therefore condemned to a life of begging and humiliation pleads for help. And the disciples raise the problem of theodicy. They too want to discuss it. But Jesus won't waste time on endless words. He goes to help the man. That's his answer. Don't just talk. Help the man. Alyosha learns it. Oh, he'll undergo lots of pain before he can live Jesus' way, doing what he can about people's hurts, loving, lifting whoever needs him. And that's how the novel ends, with Alyosha helping children. Is this what sends Mario Puzo out into the sunlight feeling grace? Or could it be that closer to a suffering servant is Dmitri, who voluntarily accepts punishment for a crime he didn't commit? For in Siberia, he'll at last know love. Well, perhaps closer still is Ivan, because he's truly without God. How much more Golgotha-like could life be, with only a hint of hope ahead? Or perhaps nearest of all is poor Smerdyakov, born in a shed, unwanted, despised, treated by all as a servant, who laid down another man's life for a brother, and when the brother rejects him, hangs himself? Or could it be that the full expression of suffering servanthood is all 4 brothers, now each part of each? Near the end of writing it, working fever pitch, Dostoyevsky got an invitation to make a speech that would have nationwide coverage. Normally, one would guess, the bigoted journalist Fyodor would have grabbed at the opportunity. Equally surely, the working every night writer would have refused it out of hand. But for some reason, he accepted. And though completing his book was relentless torture, this public event became so important to him, he spent hours on it. The brothers Karamazov came to its finish, and all Russia acclaimed it, right wing, left wing, all. Then he gave that speech to a most extraordinary response. The newspaper said it was historic. People weeping, embracing, swearing to be better, as if brotherhood began. Could it be that at last his own splitness was healed, that he was whole, and the people shared his wholeness? Shortly after, he began to hemorrhage and died. January 31st, 1881. 30,000 people followed his body through the streets to the monastery, where the monks, in an act previously reserved only for the Tsars, came out to welcome him.